My guest today is Michael Overstreet, the Senior Systems Engineering Director for Cyber and Cloud at Cisco at U.S. Public Sector. Michael, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Jason, for having me.
Let me set just a little bit of context for our discussion today. It's been 3 years since the White House released its initial Zero Trust memo. That memo laid out requirements and deadlines for agencies to move to this modern security architecture. The Trump administration is preparing version 2 of Zero Trust that will focus on specific initiatives that the entire government can undertake. At the heart of the administration's focus are concepts around efficiency and rationalization. Over the last few years, a key piece to this move to Zero Trust has been the implementation of something called Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE approach, that integrates network and security services into a cloud architecture. In fact, the Cloud Security Alliance says Zero Trust and SASE are crucial pieces of a modern security strategy. For more on why SASE and Zero Trust are what some people say two players on the same team, we turn to Michael Overstreet from Cisco. So I gave a little bit of a definition of SASE. Let's dig a little deeper. Why are we talking about it all the time now, and how does it fit into today's architecture?
So with today's architectures and what agencies face, Jason, they're seeing a plethora of older, outdated models. They're seeing tech debt with capabilities that are, let's call them antiquated, to say the least. They're also seeing even hybrid work and these siloed pockets of greatness and really good capabilities, but not across the broader network, right? So when we think of SASE at Cisco, we think of more than just a traditional SASE, which is Secure Service Edge with SD-WAN. We also think of what we call Universal Zero Trust Network Access, which also adds in identity and observability and the capability to show or provide a user experience and improve upon the network performance. So as users access applications, they get the user experience that the agency wants. They get the capabilities that they need to complete their job to further the mission or the program that they're on. And it's all seamless, right? One client, one capability that's basically least privileged trust. That's the Zero Trust part of it, with that integration into the broader network where you have observability and visibility into what's happening, so you can apply policy effectively across that entire agency network.
Couple things I just want to tag back on, because I think this is important. The typical SASE, the one we've been talking about, feels like for years, you said it's connected back to more of just an SD-WAN.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that. What's the difference today? Seems to be this type of SASE you're talking about, and this integrated architecture is much more, I'll say, holistic.
Yeah, so we see it as more holistic and more robust, right? So we take intelligence that we've gathered from the network. Cisco is a major network provider for equipment across the federal government. So we have all this intelligence, all this telemetry coming in, feeding this information into these systems and these solutions. And we can take that and help an agency understand that this is the right user at the right time in the right place to access that cloud delivered application. Instead of, hey, we have this old antiquated system of a castle and moat where you have VPN access in to the network, and then once you were in, and just your username and password gained access. So we want to move away from that to something that's more holistic, more modern, that provides that, like I mentioned, that user experience, that seamless integration into a holistic picture or a holistic architecture for that agency, right?
A lot of what you're talking about, right, is the basis of Zero Trust, right? You know, least privilege, trust but verify, right user, right time, right place. Why is this such a big challenge? We've been talking about it for many years. We think we understand the basics, right? We've talked about ABAC and RBAC and all those things.
So I'll tell you why it's a challenge, Jason. I've been to many security vendor conferences over the last 10 years, and the number of vendors has grown dramatically, right? Last time I was at RSA, not to plug RSA, but I was at RSA, there were over 3,000 vendors at RSA. almost all of them had some kind of message around zero trust, right? Or something that they help you solve, and we need to be able to bring all that together, and a single vendor, a single solution helps solve that problem for agencies and the administrators inside those agencies, because you get away from this siloed approach, and you get to a point where you have the telemetry feeding solutions that give you the ability to apply policy throughout the network. You get a better user experience. It's all integrated. And on top of that, you get identity and identity intelligence that allows you to make those decisions even more rapidly and with more capability to deliver that effectively for the agency.
I think one of the reasons why there's so many more vendors at a place like RSA or Black Hat or wherever is just because it's the buzzword of the day, right? Zero trust. It's like AI. Everyone does AI these days. Now previously everyone did zero trust. But one of the challenges agencies have, you talked about these silos approaches, it's hard to move to a single integrated piece because, well, I have this piece here and I have that piece there, and they don't necessarily talk to each other. Are there ways agencies can start to kind of get out of those silos? Are there APIs? Are there something that can kind of bring things together?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've done is made our solution open, right? So you can actually come in and actually, as agencies want to migrate from one solution to another, openness matters, right? You have to have the ability to take configurations or policy from one solution and have it move and apply to another solution, and have that be as seamless as possible, not add more tech debt to the agency as a whole. So what we've done is make that where we can take a part of a federated agency, because most of our agencies are somewhat federated, right? They have independent missions and programs that apply up underneath an overall agency or an overall department, and we can look at one part of that and do that part of the agency and then move to another one and build that way as well. But it's open, right? So you can move and migrate from one to another fairly easily.
And I think that when you talk about tech debt, that's the biggest challenge. How do agencies stop paying for things that they've been paying for a long time, but they still need? And do they have the money to pay for something else while they're also still paying for the thing that they still need? I mean, it's that circle that they just can't get out of. And I think that's the biggest thing. When you talk to agency customers, are they figuring out ways to get out of that kind of that death circle, if you will, of paying for stuff they don't want anymore, but they still need?
Yeah, so the challenge there happens to be, how do you migrate, how do you take that old policy or that old data set from, say, an antiquated VPN technology and have it apply into your SASE or Universal Zero Trust policy? And what Cisco has done as a vendor is be able to pull that policy in and make sure that it's translatable into something that matters to Zero Trust. So we're helping those those agencies move off those antiquated, older technologies full of tech debt into something that's more modern. And we do that with great partners and great services that we have.
I know the move away from VPN has been a long time coming. Do you find that a lot of agencies are still clinging to their VPN, or most trying to get off?
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
We see more and more people making the move, but there's still very many agencies out there that cling to the VPN because it's known technology, right?
Yeah.
We know what happens. There's a really good standard that we had in the mid-2000s through most of the 2010s that laid out how you would set up a VPN, how you controlled user access to the VPN and to the network, and then all the security that you applied to it as you entered the network. But once you got past that layer of security, you're wide open and in the network. So that is what we talk to many customers about, is how we move away from that. But there are many agencies still hanging on to that old VPN technology.
It's interesting because when I talk to CIOs and others in the community, there's a lot of this. We're starting the path towards SASE. We have some pilots, or we have some, we're a little bit here and a little bit there, and we're looking to move. And then you asked about VPNs, and that's a mix, right? Oh, well, we're not really using them like we were,
right.
or they're not as useful as they once were. And really, the goal here is SASE is great, but really, it's a long-term architecture, a long-term change that they're really trying to achieve.
Yeah, so that's exactly what our approach is. We don't have a silver bullet at Cisco. We have a solution, right? And we're in this to future-proof the agency around this and drive the capabilities so the agency can accomplish their mission or their program, and that as fast as they possibly can, as quickly as they can. But we do want to make sure that the end user experience, which is key to adoption, is rock solid. And that's why Cisco has incorporated many capabilities into that end user experience.
I want to go back to the end user experience piece because I think that's really key, and you hear that with every technology, whether it's AI or CX or whatever, is if they're not happy, they're not going to be happy. But let me just take a half a step back to talk about the future proofing. When it comes to SASE and other related zero trust architecture pieces, the fact that cybersecurity is getting harder, the fact that the threat surface is increasing, the fact that agencies are pushing more data to the edge and more devices to the edge, that's why this type of SASE architecture, that's why this is becoming even more important because of all the changes that we're seeing today and we expect in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. As they push that data, as they adopt the cloud-first mentality where they develop applications no longer on-prem, on a server, they're doing it in a cloud environment. That opens the door to so many threat actors, even in a regulated cloud like our FedRAMP environments that we have inside the U.S. federal government. There's very much a threat that could be had, or that opens the door to a lot of risk. Sharing data, exposing user information or sensitive data, that's still incredibly
prevalent with everybody. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to change anytime soon, especially, we haven't even brought up AI, though I brought it up, but it's coming. It's coming.
I have an answer for you.
We're gonna at that point we're gonna take a quick break and we can come back. We can get your answer, and we'll also talk about the user experience because I think you're absolutely right that that's a key piece. My guest today is Michael Overstreet, the Senior Systems Engineering Director for Cyber and Cloud at Cisco U.S. Public Sector. Michael, before break, you teased us a little bit with the user, right? If the user's not happy, everything else kind of starts to fall apart. Maybe talk a little bit about how the user design, the user experience is such a big part of this move to SASE when it comes to zero trust.
So when it comes to zero trust, you're relying on a user to authenticate to everything that they do, essentially. And if that user finds it arduous and tiresome and too difficult, they will find a way around it. And that's what we don't want. We want to make that user experience as seamless and easy as possible, however, still applying those least privileged access, right user, right device, right time, right place. So we make sure that the zero trust policy is applied. That's what's important. With a solution that's focused on that end user experience, Jason, what you get is somebody that is thinking about, hey, how is the traffic traversing the network to get to the application as fast as possible, as quickly as possible? How are we doing authentication? Do we have authentication set up in a way that the user experience is less arduous, less tiresome? Does it make sense that we have to authenticate this user again? Are we following our policies, right? All those things matter in that user experience. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we can observe the network and see what's going on the network. So maybe the networking engineers or security engineers can find a different solution or a way around potentially a problem with an outage or a network relay being down somewhere. That becomes a user experience problem too. So if you're asking them to do all this authentication for every application that they're using, and then all of a sudden the network goes down, they're just going to blame the authentication in your zero trust. They didn't understand the network went down. So having visibility and insight and observability into that's incredibly important as well.
And hopefully those same network engineers, network systems administrators can see when there's a problem that could occur. Like, if we continue down this path, this bottleneck could happen.
Right, absolutely. They have that visibility into the network. And that's key for not only cybersecurity and what we as cyber professionals want to be able to see on the network, but it's also great for the network engineering team too, to do the network monitoring and health.
How often are you having that conversation about the user when you talk to customers in government? Is it happening up front, or are they just so excited to, okay, well, we'll do this to the network and we'll have this observability and we'll be able to do these logs and we'll be able to put this technology in? And like, is it all about the technology and the user comes second, or is that, so have you seen a change that's up front?
What we've seen at Cisco is a change, right? They're more worried about the user experience being a part of it, not the only requirement. Honestly, Jason, Cisco wasn't first in this market, right? Sure. And that's also brought up some points that other vendors have fallen short on this user security experience, or the user experience when it comes to zero trust. So we took it to heart. We see this in the public cloud as well. We're focused on user experience. It's one agent, it's visibility and observability throughout what's happening, not only on your network, but outside of your network as these different applications traverse from the user out to the cloud that they're delivered from and back. We're watching all of that to give a better user experience overall. We're bringing that to federal too.
I think the user piece is something that's going to be growing when it comes to security. It's a refreshing thing because they have to change their processes, rethink about how they approach this. It can't just be, put up the biggest wall, because we know that doesn't work anymore. Speaking of the biggest wall not working, we know we got to shift over to AI. We mentioned it in the first segment. What are you starting to see around AI, both the threat that AI brings, but also using AI to deal with that telemetry, to deal with that observation, to make things easier on the Security Operations Center?
So Cisco is definitely AI first when it comes to enabling the administrator to be most effective, right? All of our products are AI enabled, but they're enabled with the same AI capabilities, and it's essentially one AI across all of the products. So it learns your network, it learns your capabilities, what you as an administrator could do, and it helps you along the way. That's Cisco's way of moving forward with AI and AI assistance. But on top of that, we have something called AI access. Almost every SASE vendor will do AI access in some way, shape, or form. Most of them are using URLs filtering to block capabilities. And that's a great technology. Everyone should be doing it.
Let me just jump in. When you say block capabilities, meaning, hey, if an AI tool on the outside is trying to call into your network, they potentially are saying, hey, that's a bad.
Yeah, that's bad. Or maybe a user wants to go use AI to solve a problem.
On the internet outside.
On the internet outside, right? And now the potential to upload data, that is a really scary event for a federal agency. Now we're talking about pretty sensitive data that could be exposed, and once it's in an AI, it's theirs, right? You don't get it back, right? You can't untrain it. So what we see and what needs to happen is the ability to not only block via URL filtering, which every vendor does. We want to notice that the application is AI enabled and stop it if it's not an approved application or an approved use of the application. Many applications that we have now, from the simplest one that helps us navigate to where we want to go here in DC, or what helps us buy a plane ticket, they're all AI enabled in some way, shape, or form. And whether Cisco or another company wants our users, or in this case, federal agencies want their users to be putting in data into that AI, is something that needs to be thought of. And that is the capability that I think everyone needs to get towards.
It's interesting because we hear a lot about the bad actors using AI. Now we've seen deep fakes and we've seen other things using AI to kind of get through the network defenses. So you need AI on that side, but people forget about the user side,
right?
Who then reach out and could cause problems too. So I love the fact how you kind of tied those two things together. And I think the reason why is because when we talk about SASE and Zero Trust, we really are talking about the long-term security journey that agencies continually be on.
Right.
What's the modern architecture look like? What are you starting to see from some of your customers around where they hope to go?
So what we see is many of our civilian agencies and some DoD agencies adopting the Zero Trust model set forth by DoD or by CISA, right? That they've standardized on it and they're moving in that direction. It is a slow journey, right? It is not, like we talked about in the first segment, it is not something that happens overnight. However, we see things on the DoD side around Comply to Connect, where we're building out capabilities to help that customer move forward in their Zero Trust model. On the civilian side, we're doing much of the same work on the CDM side. So that becomes an incredibly important stepping stone because you have to Zero Trust overall, this journey towards Zero Trust till you ultimately get this universal Zero Trust model that Cisco is moving forward. It's stepping stones. You can't go from nothing to universal Zero Trust. The network itself will probably break and you'll probably have many disgruntled users, right? So we have to move we have to move in a slower step. And we're seeing our federal customers do that. They're taking the right steps and moving in that direction.
Just when you see some of those steps, what do they include? I mean, we know, everyone started with identity when it came to Zero Trust. Now they're starting to move off of it. We're seeing a lot of discussion around SASE these days. We know data is the hardest one. Give me some of the things you're starting to see among your customers.
So we're seeing many federal customers modernize their WAN. And when they're modernizing that WAN infrastructure, what we see is they're stepping back and going, okay, if we have a modern WAN infrastructure, we should be looking at an SSE to bring a traditional SASE model to play. And what we've seen is that step towards the SD-WAN, drive that. However, the question about identity comes back in and where's that come from and what level of identity intelligence are you going to apply in that Zero Trust model? That becomes a very good question for many of them.
I thought we got the identity thing figured out, right? We had the HSPD-12 card, right? DoD had the CAC, right? We thought we had this figured out, and still I think we're continuing to talk about identities because it's such an important piece to everything else.
Well, it is incredibly important because if you have, I know who Jason is. He's got a cert on his card.
Who am I? Who am I, Michael?
Yeah, you got your cert. You pass it to me. I know who you are. But I don't know what device you're on, right? I don't know where you're coming from. Like, you could be Jason from Iran coming in because somebody stole your credentials, right? That is very possible. And because of that, we need to know not only who you are, but where you are, what device you're using. This becomes incredibly important when you talk about an OT environment where they're userless out there. We have a bunch of sensors reporting back, right?
You opened the door to OT. I can't walk through it. We're almost out of time, so we'll have to have you back on and we can talk about the OT because that's a huge piece. Michael, in the last minute or so we have left together, what's the big takeaway from our conversation today? What can agencies do to kind of continue to accelerate this move towards SASE Zero Trust?
So SASE and Zero Trust, from Cisco's point of view, is definitely focused on universal Zero Trust network access. Bringing both a SD-WAN capable network that's modern, new capabilities, determining policy routing, driving traffic, shaping those capabilities, and then applying security on top of it through one vendor, right? We have one vendor, one solution, one unified client to deliver all that capability, and then bringing the telemetry of the network that we have, that almost all the traffic flows across, and giving you insight into what's going on, not only for security operations and network operations, but for the end user, so we can make their experience better and overall drive your zero trust architecture.
I really appreciate our conversation today. I learned a lot. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so let me thank my guest. Michael Overstreet is the Senior Systems Engineer and Director for Cyber and Cloud at Cisco U.S. Public Sector. Michael, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for having me.
I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the Secure Access series sponsored by Cisco on Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Cisco.